Hello everybody, Meta here, with another Pokemon Crystal ROM hack. For this hack, I wanted to go back to the classic experience of the game with some extra features added in. Kind of like the improvement hacks I reviewed for Pokemon Silver not too long ago. Except this time, I'll only be taking a look at one hack that does a lot on its own. A hack that truly enhances the original experience of Pokemon Crystal, as well as solves plenty of the underlying issues the games possess. The hack I decided to look into was Pokemon Crystal Legacy by the Smith Plays, who from what I understand is a YouTuber who has been working on this hack for quite some time in order to achieve what is available today. Crystal Legacy is a hack of Pokemon Crystal that does its best to enhance the original game and only adds in what is necessary without changing the core game too much. It also adds in a couple of extra features to the game, but still keeps it tame in order not to go too overboard with these additions. The main feature the hack offers is a sort of balance patch to the game, fixing a good amount of the issues the originals had, making Crystal into a more enjoyable and challenging experience. Crystal Legacy makes a decent amount of changes to the main game in order to fix a couple of the issues the originals suffered from, while also adding some of its own unique features. The one issue that sticks out the most is the awkward level scaling that Gen 2 is known for, with the first example being near the end of the journey through Johto. See, there's a bit of an issue when it comes to three specific gym leaders in the game: Chuck, Jasmine, and Price. Once you beat Morty and receive the HM for Serve, you're given access to a decent chunk of the region and 3 different towns to visit. And while having a bit of freedom is a nice feeling, it doesn't help that the gym leaders are not scaled for this situation. First of all 3 gym leaders are all around the same level, and while that does support the ability for you to challenge any of them first, it also means that the others are going to be just as easy if not easier to beat. Second, if you're going by order of the gyms themselves, Price is the worst contender. I mean seriously, what is this guy doing? He has lower level Pokemon than Jasmine and is supposed to be the 7th gym leader. You may be my elder, but man do you feel like a youngster in battle. Thankfully, Crystal Legacy fixes this issue with a bit of level scaling, so that no matter what order you fight these gym leaders, the others will scale on how many badges you have. For me, I decided to fight them in the game's intended order and noticed a proper level increase after I beat Chuck and went on to face Jasmine, as well as Price becoming an actual challenge this time. I'm so proud of him. This fix to the game was a really great decision, because it supports the idea for the player to fight these gyms in any order without making the other leaders feel like low level stomp fest. And personally, I would like a decent challenge when fighting the later gym leaders. Before I head over to the neighboring region of Kanto and its level issues, I do want to stay in Johto and talk about some of the other changes and fixes to the other gym leaders here. While not only making them a bit harder with slightly tweaked levels, all the gym leaders actually rep their current region more within this hack. And while I completely understand that Gen 2 only added 100 new Pokemon to the series, there were still plenty of them to warrant all 8 gym leaders to have more than one or sometimes just none in their party. I'm also very aware that a gym leader's party is there to match their personality, but I'm gonna be honest, Faulkner buddy, just use a Hoot Hoot or a Noctowl. I'm so tired of seeing Pidgey. Heck, there's like 1,000 of them outside. Also get rid of that level 9 Pidgeotto. Don't think I'm not onto you and your dad. And now onto Kanto. And boy, it had big level scaling issues in the original games. I mean, you get there after beating the Elite Four as what feels like post-game content. However, you fight all the gym leaders and trainers, and, well, it's just a bit underwhelming and kind of a stomp. The only real challenge is Blue, mostly because he has a team that's filled with variety and higher levels than the others. In Crystal Legacy, Kanto actually feels like a true extension to the game rather than just a victory lap. All the trainers have buffed up Pokemon to match post the Elite Four setting, and the gym leaders are actually a threat like Blue. Of course I'm a huge fan of this change, because it was always boring to one-shot all the Kanto gym leaders and then get faced with Blue to be an actual challenge, then go against Red who is leagues above all of them. With this change however, you can actually be more prepared for that final clash up on Mount Silver. Next is a rebalance of the Pokemon themselves, in which Crystal Legacy does a pretty great job at. It takes Pokemon that are deemed underwhelming and a bit lacking and gives them a decent boost to their stats, making them a lot more viable to choose for your party. As much as I'm an avid fan of Pokemon giving you a huge variety of Pokemon to choose from, and to find your favorites, it's pretty obvious that some Pokemon get more love than others with each new generation. And while I do hate the idea of bashing Pokemon because they're quote unquote not viable in something like a casual playthrough where the player can choose whatever they want, I can admit that these extra buffs to said Pokemon do allow them to shine in a team a lot more. Plus it's to show that the creator of the hack is giving these Pokemon the love they deserve instead of leaving them in the dust. Most of the Pokemon also got a complete upgrade to their learn sets, assisting those with a limited move pool and granting them a wider variety of moves to utilize, as well as buffing some of the less powerful moves within the game, with the biggest beneficiaries to this change being both the bug and fighting types, since a good amount of the moves in those types were either fairly weak or exclusive to certain mons, especially with the bug types. Honestly, one of the more simple yet great fixes the hack includes, since a lot of the move pools of most Pokemon are simply just lacking, and this change really does them justice. The last rebalance the hack adds is quite the game changer actually. See, in order to keep the spirit of the original games, Crystal Legacy does not add the physical special split in like a lot of other hacks do. However, the hack does change two of the types, Ghost and Dark, which are now swapped. Ghost type moves being special is a godsend for Ghost types everywhere, mostly because of Shadow Ball, and all the Psychic types that learn it are also rejoicing as well. Unfortunately, those same Psychic types are also more fearful of Ghosts possessing such power, being able to take advantage of their special attack a lot more with these stab moves. Dark types on the other hand are a little bit more mixed on their new position. There are still some Pokemon that really love that Dark is physical, especially since Crunch lowers defense, so any physical attackers that learn it are more inclined to have it in their moveset. Then there's those special attackers like Houndoom that aren't too excited for this change, since it was their answer to everything that resisted fire. Sure, it still does a decent amount because of stab, but not as much as it could be. I do really think this is a good change overall, especially since this hack is keeping the game in a pre-split world, and while some Pokemon might suffer a small loss in their movesets, I still feel like the positives outweigh the negatives here. Also, whoever decided Lick being the deciding factor for Ghost to be physical, not the play, sorry. For the story of Crystal, the hack keeps a lot of the main plot the same, but also adds small adjustments to certain sections to enhance the story, mostly through character arcs. The Rivals arc is the main one that the hack sets out to improve a bit through his newly added ace Pokemon Larvitar. While the general idea of the rival becoming a better person and understanding to love and respect their Pokemon is still intact, Crystal Legacy makes the Rivals arc feel a bit more natural and fulfilling. Within this hack, his arc reaches its peak within Victory Road, where his newfound love for his Pokemon truly shines before battling him, allowing his Pupitar to achieve an early evolution through their bond. In the original game, we don't really see too much of the Rivals' growth through visual storytelling, but rather through his statements within the game. It would have been nice to see his Golbat evolve into Crobat to show his new appreciation for his Pokemon, but that doesn't happen until the rematch before the Elite Four. And while it is nice that it eventually does happen, it's a bit too late since the rematch with the rival only happens on specific days, so you may not even get to witness it. Plus it's also kind of an out-of-way scenario for most people. With the new adjustments to his character arc, we get to see firsthand the rival's love for his Pokemon through the early evolution since it's a mandatory fight with him. Also, I really love this kind of storytelling. It's kind of like one of those character transformation moments in anime, and I mean it's Pokemon, so it fits just right in. Plus we had Wally do this sort of thing in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. As for some of the other story additions, we have a small arc featuring the Hyuk Team Rocket member. I mean, it's an interesting addition to show a Rocket member actually have some personalities other than "Teehee, I love being a little troublemaker, time to steal some Pokemon." Although, I'm not super against such things, mostly because my current favorite Pokemon card from the new set is the Raticate Illustration Rare. I mean, look at this goofy guy, and it's just great grin, it's awesome. But it's always refreshing to have an outlier from the actual team themselves, especially one that proves to be quite the challenge. Heck, they were even given a name. And that's quite the accomplishment for a Team Rocket member considering some of the executives don't even have one. There is another change to the Team Rocket storyline involving a mysterious man who assists Lance and Yu in thwarting their plans. This character helps you locate the hidden Rocket hideout in Mahogany Town as well as make an appearance in the radio tower during their takeover. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this character because they end up having a pretty significant role near the end, but I'm a huge fan of them helping us locate the Mahogany hideout because it was always a bit weird for Lance to just go off on a whim hyper beaming a poor guy to find the hideout. Like, what if that hideout wasn't actually there and those guys weren't even helping Team Rocket? Goodbye to that guy, I guess. Returning to Generation 2 is always a great time for me, and having all these hacks feature several great quality of life improvements always makes the visit even more fun. In Crystal Legacy's case, a couple of the typical quality of life improvements make an appearance here. Improvements such as a run button complete with a sprite change, more backspace, trade evolutions now level requirements, use again repel prompt, shops for harder to find items, and fast egg hatching. These are some of the smaller improvements added in, but there are some more major features that I believe deserve a more in-depth mention. If you paid attention to some of my older reviews, I'm always a big fan of how ROM hacks handle the HMs in these older generations. I mean, not many people really like them. Heck, even Game Freak eliminated them in their newer games. So what does Crystal Legacy do to alleviate this issue? Well, the hack makes HMs easily forgettable as any other move. Yep, just like that, you can replace any HM just by teaching the Pokemon another move over it. And while I was a bigger fan of how Pokemon Coral showed off its answer to HMs, this method is still a great way to make HMs less cumbersome. The next thing I want to talk about is probably my favorite change to the hack: the availability of the Pokemon themselves. Everyone knows about the absolutely silly decision made to have some of the Johto Pokemon only exist in Kanto, and how late into the game it is, making the only way possible to have any of these Pokemon in the early game is through trading, and not a lot of people have access to that. There's also a handful of Pokemon that only exist in later locations as well, that would be nice to have earlier. Crystal Legacy fixes these issues by giving the late game Pokemon new homes within earlier locations, as well as making all 251 Pokemon available like most hacks do. However, some of these encounter rates of these Pokemon can be a bit on the lower end, but nothing to spend hours hunting for. I truly believe this is a massive fix to the base game itself. A lot of people want those later game Pokemon and to try them out and have them in their party, especially since some of them got buffed. Through this change, I was able to gather my team up a lot quicker than usual and didn't have to deal with any late game stragglers that required level grinding to catch up. Crystal Legacy also adds new sprites to the game, with the first being the new overworld sprites for all the Pokemon. Giving the Pokemon all unique overworld sprites has seemed to be a trend with some of these hacks that I've reviewed recently, and I have liked each and every different iteration of them. These sprites are always a nice touch to make the Pokemon feel more unique, and plus they're always super cute. There's also the main Rocket admin who gets a new overworld sprite, as well as the new character I mentioned earlier. The hack also adds in new sprites that indicates the current weather effects in battles, which can be a nice reminder if you happen to forget on your turn. Crystal Legacy is a hack that literally lives up to its name. The hack strives to keep the original experience of Crystal intact while also making an even better experience. As I played through this hack, I greatly appreciated all the adjustments to the game and the fixes to the issues the original suffer from. And while I'm always a fan of seeing the new environments and stories some ROM hacks presents, it's always nice to come back and see the original in a new light. Meta, out.